Willow Creek was a map of dry veins. The riverbed lay cracked like broken pottery, and the trees had long since surrendered to the heat. Dust coated every surface, turning the world a uniform, suffocating brown. Eli walked past the silent playground daily, his head bowed, clutching a notebook that held the only color left in his life. He stopped at a sidewalk crack near the road. There, wedged between layers of crumbling concrete, a single green sprout pushed upward. It was pale, thin, and impossibly alive. He knelt, clearing loose grit from around its base with trembling fingers. Nearby, the old gardener watched from the shade, his voice raspy as he spoke. Even the smallest seed believes in tomorrow. Eli looked at the fragile stem, then back at the barren gray town. That night, he sat by a single flickering lamp. He opened his notebook to a blank page. His pencil moved with frantic precision, sketching towering oaks, heavy blossoms, and birds in mid-flight. He wrote Hope Garden at the top of the page. The sketch was a rebellion against the dust outside his window. The next morning, Eli stood in a trash-filled corner near the playground. He began the work. He hauled rusted cans, shattered glass, and plastic debris into a bin until his hands were raw and stained with dark earth. Neighbors walked past, shaking their heads, shouting that he was wasting his time on poisoned soil. Eli did not look up. He spent his afternoons hauling heavy buckets of water from his home, drenching the dry ground until the dirt turned soft. Days bled into weeks. Then, a tiny leaf unfurled. A single bright red flower pierced the dust. A young girl stopped, stared at the color, and reached out. Eli handed her a small trowel. She dug. The next week, 10 more children joined them. Parents arrived with packets of seeds, grandparents brought tools, and someone hammered scrap wood into benches. The corner that had been a dumping ground changed. It grew into a sanctuary of color and life. The sound of shovels hitting earth replaced the silence of the town. People who had once walked past with their heads down now stopped to pull weeds, plant roots, and water the beds. The transformation was complete. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a long golden light over the blooming rose. Then, the air changed. The warmth vanished, replaced by a sudden biting chill that swept through the valley. The sky bruised into a deep, angry purple. A low rumble of thunder vibrated through the ground, shaking the very benches the neighbors had built. Within minutes, the wind arrived. It did not just blow. It hunted. It tore through the trees with a high-pitched shriek, snapping branches like dry twigs. Rain followed, not in droplets, but in heavy, stinging sheets that turned the garden soil into churning mud. Lanterns swung wildly, their glass shattering against the wooden posts. Eli watched from his window as the vibrant petals he had nurtured were beaten flat into the dirt. The wind hammered the garden, scouring the paths and drowning the flower beds in rising water. The sanctuary that had taken months to grow was being dismantled in seconds. Nature reclaimed the space with violent, relentless precision. When the roar of the wind finally died away, only the sound of dripping water remained. The garden lay broken under the dark, heavy clouds. Eli stepped into the garden. His boots sank into the silt. He stopped before a patch of flattened stems and shattered lantern glass. He dropped his head, his shoulders dropping under the weight of the loss. The silence was absolute until a small hand tapped his back. He turned. The young girl stood there, her face smeared with mud. Behind her, the neighbors, parents, and the old gardener emerged from the gloom. No one spoke. The old gardener stepped forward, dropped a rusted rake into the dirt, and began to scrape away the debris. A father picked up a fallen wooden plank, testing the hinges before hammering it back into place. A mother pulled a crate of salvaged seeds from behind a collapsed bench. They moved in a rhythm, clearing the ruined petals and pressing new roots into the saturated soil. Eli watched as they worked. He reached down, gripped a shovel, and joined the line. They cleared the paths, propped up the broken trellises, and straightened the lanterns. By the time the sun began to sink, the garden stood upright. It was not just repaired, it was reinforced. The mud was gone, replaced by the order of 100 hands working in unison. The sanctuary was no longer just a plot of land. Months passed, and the garden grew beyond the corner. Travelers from distant towns walked the paths, stopping to touch the leaves and sit on the benches. At the center, a new wooden sign stood firm, carved with the words, "One small seed can change the world." A reporter from the city arrived one afternoon, holding a camera toward the rows of blooming flowers. He turned to Eli and asked how a single person managed to grow so much in such dry soil. Eli did not answer with a speech. He pointed to the families laughing under the warm glow of the lanterns. He watched as the old gardener shared a trowel with a new visitor, and the young girl led a group of children through the rows. "I did not grow a garden," Eli said. "I just helped people believe again." That night, the lights in the trees hummed with electricity. The townspeople sat together, talking as the sky opened up above them. For the first time in a decade, the thick haze had lifted. The stars over Willow Creek burned clear and bright, reflecting in the riverbed that no longer seemed quite so cracked.